Hey there, welcome to OnSet. I am Daniel Norton. Today we're going to have a little fun with macro photography. So I'll talk a little bit about it and then we'll shoot a bunch of pictures and we'll take some questions. So if you don't know, macro photography generally refers to close-up photography, like extremely close-up photography. A really nice macro lens might give you a 1-to-1 magnification. That means that if your sensor is, for instance, 1 inch wide, then and you photograph something that's 1 inch wide, it would actually be able to get exactly that replication. We don't get a physical sense of that anymore because we're not shooting film, but back in the days of film, you know, you could shoot a dime and then hold the negative up to the dime and you'd see it was the full size. Why do we want to do this? There's lots of cool little details in things, and macro can be super fun, especially on a rainy day like it is here in New York, and you can photograph all kinds of stuff to show the detail, really fun. But of course, I'm a people photographer, so we're going to actually use it in a way that is involved in a portrait. We're not necessarily going to get super, super close macro shots today, but we're capable of it. So I wanted to start though just kind of showing you guys the type of thing you can do getting really close and some of the things you might want to consider when you're doing that. Then we've got my friend Cadence. She's going to come out. She's going to put on this beautiful necklace that we got from, where's the place where they have necklaces, Seth?
Salvation Army.
Salvation Army, and which is actually accurate. And we're going to make a portrait. It may have been that, but anyways, so we're going to have some fun with it. So
Sales.
Sales. Is that even around anymore?
Tiffany.
Definitely not Tiffany's. We haven't got the money for that. So anyways, all right, so I'm already partially set up. One thing we want to consider when we're shooting something that's really small is we really want to think about making it three-dimensional by using light, right? Especially jewelry. We want to use shadow. We want to use reflectance. Now, a lot of times when you're shooting, let's say, a person, you're like, well, we'll just make it really shallowed up the field. Well, we're going to have shallowed up the field here. But when you're super close to something, that can just look super gimmicky. Sorry. Oh, I'm waiting for the comments. You know, we want to show the detail. If somebody hires you to photograph their piece of jewelry, they don't want to see this sliver of depth of field, although we'll do that because it's fun. But really, we want to get a bit more. So we're going to want to probably be on a tripod. You could do things like focus stacking, but we're not going to get into that because not every camera does that. So we want to basically give ourselves a decent amount of depth of field. So I'm over here. I have the Nikon Z6ii. I will try to say all the gear I'm using as I go. I will certainly forget probably immediately. So if you're asking about something, I will let you know. All right, so we're going to do an overhead shot. I'm going to talk about everything and then we'll walk through and do the various things. Okay, so Nikon Z6 here with the Nikon 105 macro lens for the Z. Thank you, Seth, for letting me borrow it. I've got a Profoto B10, 2 of them actually. One here that's in a 3-foot octagon with a grid. Grids add contrast. I've also got a second one back here in a Shimura extra small box. It's a nice soft box to wash across. Remember, your highlights are a reflection of your light source. So using a large light source with diffusion in the front is going to give us that kind of that white reflection, which is our highlight that we want, right? And then I've got a dado light here. This one is fitted with a focusing projector, so we can really control where the light falls. So this is going to be our hard light. If you ever go to a jewelry store, you're like, oh, those diamonds look so beautiful. They're hitting it with like little hard lights. We want those little bright highlights. We want everything. We want a large highlight to wrap around. And then we want small highlights to really make it pop. Unfortunately, a lot of times people get into shooting product and jewelry and stuff, they try to remove all the shadows and all the highlight, and what you get is a very flat, boring image. We want some depth. I'm coming in at kind of an angle. I'm not going to show the whole piece because this isn't actually for an ad. I'm just kind of creating what I think is an interesting shot. I'm in Capture One. I can see it through my viewfinder here because I am in a mirrorless camera. But if I were to press my little button here, actually I can do it for you guys. So again, we're in Capture One. You can see it through the viewfinder. You can see the depth of field looks relatively shallow because, of course, when you're focusing, right, it basically, all right, you don't have to honk at me. No, so you can see, no, just kidding, sorry. They probably can't even hear that. You can see how shallow it is. It looks pretty cool. That's showing it more or less, you know, wide open from where it is. But we're going to close down a bit because we want more in focus. We'll play around a little bit. Okay, so we've basically got our piece of jewelry. This is a beautiful fabric or a paper glued onto a piece of foam core that Seth made for me for my birthday. Thank you, Seth.
Video on my YouTube.
You can watch it on his YouTube channel, Last Ex Witness. So here it is. You can see what it looks like. This is just with the available light. If I smoosh in this button in the front of my camera where you're actually seeing what it looks like, that's what it really looks like, without the camera amplifying it. So we want to create kind of this setup, but a little bit more detail and shape. So we're going to go one light at a time. We'll build up this shot, and then I'll show you how I would do it on a figure being kittens. Okay, so our key light here is going to be the octagon. So I'll start with this one. So again, I'm using the camera. I've closed down to f40 because that's as closed down as it goes. And I want to give myself a lot of depth of field. So I'm starting at f40. I'm going to go to, right now, I was at 1 second. So f40 at 1 second. I mean, how often do you get to shoot at f40, right? f40. all right, it's a little ridiculous, I know. All right, it's f40 at 1 second. I'm going to turn off everything. Actually, if I just hold this down, I'll do that, right? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I took a picture. I was holding the camera in my hand, so it's probably going to be blurry. Okay, that's what we're getting. This is just the overhead lights reflecting. We'll turn those off. But basically, you can see, actually, the little hard lights are kind of nice. They're kind of giving us reflection. But what we're going to do here is we're going to start with, I'm going to leave the lights on just so you guys can see what's going on, but we'll turn them off when we get our final shot. But keep in mind, that's with no flash. Okay, so now I'm going to come in. I'm going to put it in TTL. This is my A group. I'm going to turn off the B group. We're just going to make a shot. Again, I'm shooting at 1 second, so no flash.
I'm going to switch to the other camera.
The flash, okay. The flash is off because I've been sitting here for, okay. All right, so this is, again, we're building our shot up. Now we're seeing how we're getting this nice, now you can see what the octagon does, right? It's creating this beautiful shape with this, we have this long reflection across here. We've got these little bit of sparkle going on, but overall it's still kind of flat. Now I'm going to take my secondary light, my B light, which is the one in the back at 40.
I never knew it went that far.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what it went to. I just closed down until it stopped. All right, and then we're going to take a shot. I'm just focused somewhere in the middle for now. This is now the backlight. Again, this is giving us our overall cue, right? So this is giving us a nice underexposed image, right? But again, it's going to be combined with other lights. This is giving us our background.
So two questions.
Okay.
At f40, are you within the sweet spot of the lens, and how much diffraction was f40?
At f40, am I in the sweet spot? No. The sweet spot's usually somewhere closer to being more wide open, but I want the depth of field. You know, diffraction, this is the first time I've ever used this lens, so I cannot tell you. It looks pretty clean to me, but we're going to start at f40. I'm probably not going to shoot everything here. The reality of this is this. If you were really shooting jewelry commercially, no matter what people that shoot cool macro shots like this tell you, you would never shoot this close. You would actually back up and shoot with a much higher megapixel camera, and then you would crop. That will allow you to shoot at a more closed down more opened up aperture, so closer to the sweet spot, and remove any of that super close diffraction. We're kind of creating an art piece here and trying to showcase a macro lens. That's why we're doing it this way. I would not normally shoot this like this. So if for commercial purposes, we're just kind of seeing what the lens can do. We're pushing it to its limits. Okay, so I've turned it back on the other light, and I'm going to go into manual so they stay locked in, and we're going to make some shot like that.
Is this just the two strobes?
This is just the two strobes right now. And okay, so now this is both lights. Now what we can see with our strobes, because the main point of the strobes here is to create an overall shape around the lights. These are maxed out, I'm pretty sure. Let me check this one.
You're at 8.5.
8.4, so they're almost maxed. They're down to about a third power. I could turn them up some if I want, but I'm looking at my highlights, right? I want to make sure the highlights don't blow out. I'm not really overly worried about this mid-tone here in the center because I'm going to use my hot light for that. Okay, because I want that punchy light in the center. So let me bring this light in first, and then we'll start tweaking. This is when we're probably going to turn off the main light, unfortunately. All right, so this is a dado light. It's an LED. I have it set at 5,000 Kelvin, which is what my camera's set at, and I've got it turned up all the way. Like I said, it's fitted with this focusing spot, so I can kind of get the light where I want it. And I'm kind of coming from the back a little bit. I want to create some depth by having what they call a drop shadow, right? A shadow in front. So we're going to have a shadow in front, and I'm going to have kind of some sparkles and some depth. I'm going to turn off the flashes for a second, and we're going to take a shot with this. Okay, so we can see what we're creating here. This, again, in and of itself is not that interesting. But when we start building everything together, we should get a much deeper shot. So let me actually turn off these main lights for a second.
Patty says, now it looks like jewelry.
Now it looks like jewelry. Hey! It is, right? It actually looks like jewelry. It's popping. So now I'm going to actually use Capture One and the ability to shoot it from here so I don't have any shake, because I am doing a 1 second exposure. Okay, now we've created something that's got dimension.
Look at those stars.
Right, we can see the sparkles. We don't need a star filter, but if we wanted one, we could do that. But you see all the jewelry, you look at the facets and how they're shaped. We can see the shapes of them, we can see highlight. This is what we want. We want this depth, but we can also control it. I feel like the backlight is coming a little bit hard, meaning too much light. The other light looks okay. So I'm gonna turn my B light down a little bit. And again, this is more just me finessing it. I'm gonna drop it down 2 stops because I really wanna see the difference. The B light is the softbox all the way from the back. All right, I'm gonna take one more. Again, it's 1 second exposure. There we go. This way we've got more shape, right? It feels a little more natural. It's not super flat. And you know, you can finesse, if you were doing these jewelry shots, you might spend an hour on every shot, getting it exactly right and moving it around. But I just want to kind of show like what we're capable of doing here with this macro lens. So now that we've got this, let's go shallow with the depth of field. Let's do it. So closer to the sweet spot is probably going to be somewhere around f11 in this lens, based on my you know, general use of these kind of lenses. And again, I haven't really used this one. So I'm going to bring my shutter speed back up to a 30th, and I'm going to go f11. I just want to see where I'm at. Okay, that seems about right. I'm going to go actually f8. And all I'm doing now is I'm not using the flash, guys. I'm just taking a picture like this. Again, I'm reestablishing myself because I want to do a bit more shallow depth of field. We can already see how much more shallow this is here and here, right? We're going to have to be very careful what we decide to focus on. So we have this now. I'm going to put the flashes back in TTL. Now remember, the back flash, we ended up turning down a couple of stops. So I'm just going to take the B flash right now in the TTL settings. I'm going to turn it down 2 stops. What that should do is give us about the same ratio we had before. I'm going to focus near the front of the piece. I'm not using like eye focus, obviously, because there's no eyes on this thing. And I'm going to come in. I'm going to focus right up front so I can watch the whole thing drop back. So now, this is something you might do with the shallow depth of field. You might do something like this if you were trying to highlight this one piece here, this perfectly never been scratched, actual giant pearl. And we can see how it falls back into the out of focus area. Again, that might seem cool for the moment, but when you're actually working on this stuff, it doesn't, you know, as a commercial project, you just really wouldn't want it to be so out of focus.
How do you compensate camera shape when hand-holding cameras for macro?
Okay, I would not handhold a camera for macro. How would I compensate camera shape? I wouldn't. I mean, you need to have steady camera for macro, because not only are you worried about the camera shake, but your focus is so shallow. You're going to be, any little bit like of a shake is going to knock things out of focus. So I would not handhold if I could avoid it. If you have to, then just like anything else, you want to really brace your body and do the same breathing like you normally would with long lenses. But I generally wouldn't handhold if you're actually doing a serious macro shot. I know it's not cool to put on a tripod, but...
I mean, like when you're out, you shoot a flower, you know?
Oh, well, if you're out shooting flowers and stuff, it's usually bright out, so you don't have that problem, right? If it's, you want to make sure your shutter speed, just like anything else, is faster than your lens. So I have a 100mm lens. I want to make sure that my shutter speed is at least 100, if not 200, you know, to make sure I don't shake. That would be how you would do that. Sorry, I misunderstood the question. But yeah, I would try to be on a tripod whenever you can. You know, people that are really like into macro photography will usually like take the flower shots, but they'll like go somewhere else and do it. They won't, I mean, yeah, if you're walking around in a botanical garden doing it for fun, you know, just do the best you can. I wouldn't worry about, I mean, a lot of times people bring those little tiny flashes and stuff. I just look for good light if I'm outside, to be honest. It feels more natural. If you're gonna set something up, then I would set it up myself. But if somebody has a little flash they use, nothing wrong with that. Actually, that depth of field there is not terrible, because we're bringing the subject in. We can see it's lit. It's a little bit flat to me still. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to take my B light and bring it down a little bit. I'm effectively surrounding this thing with light, right? You see the difference that makes, right? That when the background gets too bright back there, it's just flat, right? We want it to look a little more interesting. That's why I'm not just using one big light. I'm using multiple lights from different angles to reflect how jewelry generally looks in life, right? We want it to look like it's got shape and texture. That makes sense? Any more questions about the basic jewelry stuff? I'm gonna actually, like, I think in about 2 or 3 of these coming up, now I don't have the schedule in front of me, I'm gonna do something just on product and e-commerce, so get your questions ready for that because we'll get really into that stuff. Here I just, what's that? How close is the front of the lens to the subject? Maybe about 8 to 10 inches. It's not quite as close as we can get, we figured, right? I think we can get a little bit closer. Yeah, I mean, we framed it up in a way that I thought it would look good, but if I just get as close as I can get, I mean, I can get, let's see. I can get a little bit closer. Like, you know, I can get there. No problem. So now, you know, that's, right, you kind of lose your detail, right? If you're gonna shoot a ring or something, you might wanna get closer, maybe, but remember, you're gonna lose that depth of field. There is that kind of fun ring shot where like you get the diamond at the top and it falls off into, you know, out of focus, but you still wanna make sure that you're able to get the whole ring in focus if you need to. Okay, other questions? That was easy, okay. Let's get a person in the set, because that's what we like to do, right? So we're gonna have Cadence come in and we're gonna talk about how you might shoot something. Right, get out of here. Done. Cadence. Okay, so we're gonna have her put on the jewelry, and then we're gonna utilize the same lens, right? It's a 100mm lens. We've got decent compression for a portrait. It's really sharp. It's a macro lens. It's gonna have really flat focus, which is very nice for us. It can be a good lens for this kind of commercial stuff because we want to get the sharpness of the jewelry along with the kind of the niceness of a portrait. So we're gonna use the same tools, but we'll use them in a slightly different way.
Yeah, she's the table.
She's the table, there you go. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna put this stuff off to the side for now because we are gonna, you notice I didn't set up a background this time because we're gonna be so shallow in the depth of field and everything, it's not really gonna matter. And we can even put things directly behind her like this background if we really wanted to. Which Seth probably did a video about. I'm guessing. Using the mannequin, so. All right. That is some sawhorse that Paul bought in 1984, so somebody always asks about that. Okay, so this piece of jewelry, you know, being very expensive from we want to do something kind of dramatic with it. It's the same things apply, right? We want the jewels, the gems to sparkle, right? Oh, put this handbag on there. Because you know I'm going to boom it out in a second. But we also want her to look nice, right? It's a portrait. We want to have some nice light across her. And I definitely want to use a grid here because that's why I put it on earlier. Because I want it to have some control, right? A grid is going to narrow the area of exposure. It's going to increase contrast. I want to create something with a little bit of drama, like she's in a bit of a scene, right? Like kind of like.
Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, exactly. Except evening. What's that?
Can you do macro or tilt shift for more depth of field?
Ooh. Tilt shift lenses are not typically macro, that I know, are they? You can do it with a 4x5.
Because you can make it.
Yeah, you can do it with a 4x5. I mean, these days, I think most people, if they wanted the extra depth of field, would probably do focus stacking. Yeah. It seems more practical than using a tilt shift because tilt shift is more of a perspective thing. You could use it to get more depth of field, but that wouldn't be my first choice, no. I mean, but it is possible. It's not a good question.
They say you look fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Cadence, yes. Well, I mean, that's not unusual. All right, so I'm going to bring this up and kind of tilt it down, forward. The light is going to fall, and we're going to utilize, the fall off of the light to kind of light her face and add some drama, and then we'll deal with the jewelry separately. We don't want to have a singular light source just lighting everything because that's not going to give us the pop that we want in the jewelry. And this is going to look very lit. We want it to look lit because this is a stylized shot. So this isn't supposed to look like a casual shot.
She's dressed super casual.
Always.
Well, I mean, sometimes you want to shoot something casual. If you're doing fashion, sometimes you want to make it look like, oh, I was just hanging out and shooting pictures, but this we're going to really stylize. So here I could probably not use the tripod if I wanted, because I'm not going to get so close that it really will be an issue with focus. But I find that this Manfrotto 055 tripod. Everybody asks me every time I use this what this tripod is. So now I have stated it. It is 055. This one's the Pro, actually. The aluminum one, not the reason why it's Pro is because the neck comes out and turns sideways. I think that's what makes it Pro. I think that's what makes it Pro. I'm not actually 100% sure, but I'm sure it'll say on the site. It's really interesting to shoot with such a long lens because I'm so used to shooting with more. Yeah, it's a nice focal length. Although I typically shoot with wider lenses. All right, I'm gonna frame this up, and I am using single point focus, not like iFocus, because I'm probably gonna want to focus on the product eventually. All right, I'm gonna turn off my B light. So I'm just focusing on this light. I'm gonna put it back in TTL. I am gonna put the modeling light on for a second so I can see where it falls. So if you turn your face kind of almost slight profile. So I can see, I'm just looking at it, I can see with the modeling light that the light's hitting her face and some of her shoulder. It's gonna light up a little bit of the product. So we're just gonna take a shot and see what it looks like. Again, we're just setting a baseline. Okay, so this is pretty decent, you know, as far as the mood we want. It's a little bit, I feel like the contrast on her face is not enough. So the way that I'll increase contrast is by moving the light closer to her. Now you might say, but Daniel, because that's my name, isn't moving the light closer gonna make it brighter? Well, it will, but it will also make it fall off more rapidly. And I'm gonna turn it slightly back. So what we wanna do is get a little more contrast because I'm gonna bring other lights in. If this was a single light shot, that would probably be good, but this is gonna be a multiple light shot. There we go. So you see how I added that contrast there? It's much more shadowy here. Yes, I could go into Photoshop and do it, but I could also just do it by moving my light. So now we've got a bit of a stylized shot here with some contrast, some mood, if you will. And now I'm gonna actually add a light to the jewelry. For this, I'm going to move this stool so I don't fall over it. For this, I'm gonna use my hot light again. I like to use this light for the jewelry for the same reasons I stated before, because it gives me that nice kind of, remember we're already gonna have reflection on it. This is gonna give me that pop, that highlight. Now, in this case, I'm gonna do it from the same side. Because in the portrait, you want the light oftentimes to feel like it makes sense. And it makes more sense for the light to all be coming from one side, at least all the light in front of her. So okay, so focus stacking is, basically, focus stacking is when you take a series of photos with a slightly different focus point. So like you might start at the front of the product and then take 50 photos that drop all the ways back until you're all the ways to the back of the product at a more opened up aperture, right? Then there's software, Photoshop might even do it, but there's definitely software that does it, that compresses all that together and kind of puts it together to make it one image that is completely in focus. In order to do that, you definitely need to be on a tripod though, because it takes a series of photos. I mean, yeah, if your lens, I mean, you got to have, you could manually do it on some level. I think people used to do that, but there's some cameras just do it. I don't know if this one does because I don't do that kind of work. I don't think it does. But a lot of cameras, not a lot, some cameras do it. So that's what focus stacking is. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to basically aim this at her. Now, what's cool about these projectors is not only can I change the size of the beam of light, right? I can also change the kind of the hardest and softest of the edges of it by changing the focus here. So I want to make it a little bit less obvious. I can make it a little bit like that. It's probably not super easy for you to see right now, but I have this thing cranked full power because remember, we're battling against flash. Constant light is always going to be significantly less powerful. Keeping my exposure where it was, that actually looks pretty good. I'm at f8 at a 30th, so I think I'm actually going to bring my shutter speed up a smidge. I'm just looking right now with my eyeball. I could use a spot meter or something, but I think I'm pretty good. Yeah. This is the advantages of these newfangled cameras. Now I am focused on her face, so this is probably gonna be a little bit soft. Oh no, that gives me plenty of depth of field. So now we've got crispy. And now if you were like an artiste, like I am, that's it, I'm done. I don't have to do anything else, right? People can imagine that it's on somebody, but no, because, no, now let's see what it looks like with the flash. Again, exposure is all the same. Good. I'm focusing basically on her face because we have enough depth of field. And now we're able to add this extra highlight, right? This is making this jewelry snap, right? Snap. Okay, just like that. Now, because, as we all know, the more lights you use, the more you get paid. We'll add a third light just to give some separation. So I have this little softbox over here, which by the way is my favorite softbox. If anybody ever asked, if they were like, Daniel, what's your favorite softbox? This one. This is the Shimera extra small, shallow. And we're just gonna do like kind of a rim light here. Oh. Let me turn it on from over here so that we don't confuse ourselves. This is in my B group. I'm gonna turn this on, turn the modeling light on so I can see where it's falling. I'm gonna quickly kill the overhead so you guys can see where the modeling lights are. I think they can pretty much see that, right? I'm probably gonna turn this off as well. Now can't see it, or dark? It's good? Okay, good.
It's like a movie set.
Oh, look at that. Oh, those are pretty good. Look at that. Seth does a good job. All right, so we're gonna look like that. Perfecto, good. All right, I left the B light turned down 2 stops in TTL because I knew that I wanted it a little bit duller. Remember, when you're using TTL with separation or hair lights, oftentimes they overexpose a bit. So I left it dialed down a bit. And there we go, now we have some separation. It feels like a finished shot, and I do have enough depth of field that that's pretty sharp. So if I was shooting this for a commercial client, I probably would either close down a smidge more, or I would take a second shot of the jewelry while she's in the same pose. It's not easy to do, just to make sure you have those edges. But honestly, this is probably sharp enough. And we're able to just crank it out like that. Simple as that, right? Now we could come in and do closer shots. Let's try that actually, since we have, wow, that went really fast. Wow, that was really fast. Oh, she has the, but let's come in and look a little closer. Now we can definitely come in, now that we have our established setup. Actually, you know what I'm doing? I'm freewheeling.
I love how you're like, I need tripod for macro, and I know he's gonna tripod. You know what? I'm not gonna use a tripod.
Oh, I'm freewheeling at this point. I'm feeling overconfident. This is what happens. You start getting confident. You know, I've watched a lot of movies and TV shows, and there's always like photographers, and they're always like,
oh, no, you definitely got a stance to you. There you go.
there you go. All right, let me change this. First of all, I'm gonna shoot a vertical shot because, you know, magazines and all that. Okay. Okay, so this is nice, but I also come in. Let's try to get something with a little bit of a,
I like that lifeline covering that necklace.
oh, thank you. Bring your chin up a smidge. Good. So I can come in, because again, the macro lens is going to allow me to get, you know, as close as I want to get for the shots I want to get. So definitely, even if I don't necessarily plan on going like crazy 1-to-1, it's nice to know you can. Like I can come in real close. I think I moved, but oh, that's not bad. I can come in real close and bang out a shot. Remember though, when I get close, you see how much more shallow depth the field is and the terrible composition. But you can see that's a problem. So make sure that you keep that in mind if you're gonna get close. And when we are using a constant light source, we're gonna have to dial our shutter speed differently if we're gonna do this. So that is the only downside to this. They do make projectors for strobes. I find them to not be what I like to use for this, but if you prefer that and you're gonna do a lot of moving stuff, then nothing wrong with. But we definitely can do like really slim depth of field shots with this if we want. Like I can come in and just like, you know, drop this like this and just get the edge of it if we want to get that kind of shot. So, you know, you got a lot of options. Huh, that was almost too easy. Any questions?
Do you get paid twice for doing macro and portrait at once?
Yes, you get paid twice for doing macro and portrait. Well, you know, it's funny you say that because a lot of times when you're doing this kind of work, you'll actually spend the first day of the catalog shoot shooting all the product by itself, not on the figure, just so you have it, right? The inserts. Then the next day you shoot on the figure. So yeah, sometimes you do get paid twice in a sense. A lot of times they'll just use a separate photographer for that though, one that does product. But you know, if you're fortunate enough to be versatile enough to do both, then you can certainly do that. Let's do one more shot on the tripod because I clearly am better on a tripod. I like the young guys. And I'm also going to kill the flash for a second because I just want to see, now that I just want you guys to see, because sometimes it's funny when you are shooting and you got the mixed light, like you just start to forget what things are doing. But we can see that we're getting this from the constant light, right? The flash is giving us again, this is not the most amazing composition in the world, but just to show you, the flash is giving us everything else. Without the constant light, it would be, you'd lose that sparkle, right? Let me kill that. And you would just get that, right? See how it's flat? So just in case, you know, a lot of times when you're doing stuff, even when you're doing it yourself, you forget, right? You're like, oh man, I'm doing all this and what's all these lights here? But each light does have a point. I joke about using more lights to get paid more, but the reality is that if you know how to work your lights and you can really craft them, you'll create a much more interesting and viable image than just using a single light. So let's try another necklace.
There's a thing going on in the chat where one guy is asking why there's no light in her eye, and they're saying that, well, the shot is the necklace, and he's saying, well, so what, she's not dead.
Okay, so why isn't there any light in her eyes? Well, that comes down to a style, you know, what your particular style is. You can do dead eyes. Seth likes dead eyes. I think that if you are trying to draw somebody's attention to something in the shot, one way to do that is to remove attention from other things. So by not having a reflection in the eyes, we're not going to have people focusing on her eyes. Now, if you wanted a light in her eyes, a reflector would very simply do that. If I had held, in fact, I can do it right now. Oh no, she's a different person now. We'll do it in the next shot. But basically, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you know, I very intentionally did not put a reflection in her eyes to draw you to the necklace, but you certainly could do that if that's more your style, especially if it's a portrait. And there's like, let's say the cadence was like, oh, I went out and bought this fancy necklace, has several schwalm. Right. Right. Is that French? Not really. I don't. It sounds fancy. For some reason, French is fancy to me. All right, so my grandfather was French. So
that makes it French?
That maybe a little bit. I do like, did you ever see? No, you're too young. Better Off Dead. And they've got the foreign exchange student. The French fries, French toast. That's me. That's how French I am. Okay, so this is very nice. Different object, right? Here we've got this like dark metal and shells. So here we still want to make it reflect in metal, of course, and showing all the chain. We're going to show that by using highlight. So we're going to hit it with the lights just like we did before. We'll change it up a little bit though, I guess. I guess we have to do it differently every time. All right, we'll move this out of the way. Let's change it up and let's do one where we get maybe a little bit more light in the eyes, make it more kind of classic portrait for that vibe. Let's switch out to my favorite light.
Shamir.
The Shamir, exactly. By the way, going like that when you walk away from something guarantees it will not fall over.
Unless it's in the desert.
Yes, unless it's in the desert and it's a $5,000 Broncolor satellite. Nobody knew about that. There may or may not be footage of that. I have broken a lot of very expensive equipment in my day. Yes. All right. So we're going to go a little more classic here. Oh, I actually like how you're kind of doing the, yeah, that's kind of good. Right. So we're going to use the softbox to kind of bring the light across from the side. This is in my B group. I don't feel like switching the boxes, so I'm just going to make the B group my primary. So I'm resetting everything back to 0. All right, I'm turning off the light in the back. I'm leaving, by the way, people often ask about the modeling lights. I'm leaving them on so you guys can kind of see because I'm blending it with other lights. I want you guys to get a better idea of where everything's falling. Let me kill the overheads. So we can see now that it's heavy light from one side. She's going to kind of do this with her chin. I have to stand so far away. It's like I have to yell. And we're going to basically try to light this more or less with a single light. Then we're going to come in and add some flavor with the other lights. Flavor. Oh, that's a little low for me. I'm going to bring it up a bit. So I'm not loving this shadow here. It's a little low. You can see the angle of it. That's why I brought the light up. There we go. This is definitely a punchier type of light. And again, it's a softbox, but it's kind of a hard-ish edge to the light. We see the soft edge, but it's kind of hard-ish. We have reflection in our eye. We can see the jewelry. You can see that it's there, but it doesn't have any like, ooh, to get it, you know, so we're gonna bring our constant light back in. So again, by the way, this light does actually operate, we'll do it that way. This is the projector, of course. You can't see me because it's dark in here. Yep.
Also, I think it's important to like, you don't always need a constant light with strobe.
You could do all strobe, but sure. Do you want me to use all strobe? I will do all strobe.
I just want because it's.
Yeah, I mean, I like using the constant light because for me, hard, you know, it would be really good actually, which I didn't plan for. See, Seth's over here making it happen. This is a,
Oh, I want to focus it down with a grid.
yeah, not,
For that if you want.
do you?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to use grid, but I could. I need a battery though. Let me see. Sorry, I'm getting my Profoto A10. This is a small flash, like a speed light, as they sometimes are called. What's nice about this compared to what I was about to say was if I took my Profoto B10s, they've got a huge, even though they're flat in the front, they've got a big spread, 180 degrees. So I could put a grid on it or something, but they still don't have that like punch that the data light has, and I don't have a projector for the Profoto. So they do make one head that can take the data light projector, but I do not have it. Profoto sent that to me. You will see I will not get that. All right, so I'm gonna put this in my C group. Okay, so I'm gonna, C group, poop. Okay, I'm gonna come down here, I'm gonna focus this. I don't know if you can see this or not. Can you see that when I do that? You can focus this. I'm not sure if that's showing anything or not, but you can make it like right there, it's getting more focused. That's gonna be a much more narrow beam of light. Yeah, I can put the modeling light on. Well, I don't think the modeling light's gonna show the difference. But even here, let's see. Yeah, if I get it in close like this. Yeah, so we can see that we're pretty good here. Yeah, that'll work. I don't have any grip. I'm gonna hold it in my hand. I mean, this is what we gotta do. Spontaneous. Okay. Ready? You know I'm not gonna, that's perfect, do not move. Okay.
Well, the model light might not show up when you shoot. Yeah, the model light's mixed in there.
Stay on. All right, let me kill the monolight. Okay, thank you.
We'll make it dim.
Oh, I probably should focus too. Okay.
Now it should dim when you shoot.
Okay. So we're going to use a little bit of the harder light here and see if we can pull this off. I feel like the strobe might just be too soft. Let me focus first, and then you'll just have to stay in one spot. All right. Achieve your pose, please. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. Focused. There we go. All right, good. Yeah, I still think it's too soft. So you can see the reflection, I just think it's too soft. We can actually see it in our eyes too. So you can do it with this. A grid would probably help. I'm just gonna use data light because I have it. But what I am gonna do is take the projector off because obviously that's an accessory. I'm going to just use barn doors. Keep it a little simpler, right? We're gonna use the same kind of idea though, a hard light. And it's still gonna come from the same direction. And what I'm gonna do here is, I'm gonna move it in, again, relatively close. This is what's nice about C-stands. Get them in nice and close. And try turn this guy on. So the barn doors obviously are not going to give me as much control, but I can kind of create maybe like an interesting splash of light. I want to keep it off of her face. That's really the key here. So I'm just going to move it in like this. Again, creating some highlights. I'm going to come over here and just take a peek. Okay, back up a smidge. Now I don't need to be as close because I... All right, here we go. I'm going to take a shot without the flash just to see what it looks like. Okay, pretty neat. Yeah, I like these highlights better. See them? I think the shadow's a little bit low, so I'm actually going to raise this a smidge. I'm going to swing this guy horizontally so I have more space. This is what's nice about LEDs is back in the days of tungsten lights, you wouldn't want to put your tungsten lights so close to your softbox like this. All right, I'm going to turn off the overhead lights and let's take a peek. Okay, so we've got, yeah, that looks pretty good. Boom, that's just the constant light. That looks good. Now let's do a combined shot. Go ahead. Then up. There we go. Nice. Okay, cool. All right, positioning is good, exposure is bad. So I'm gonna go like this, turn your face towards the light a little bit. Perfect like that. Because remember, I turned the light away slightly, the softbox, I raised it rather. So I'm gonna have to probably adjust it. Yeah, I'm gonna adjust the softbox up. Boop. Okay, I'm turning the softbox up a couple tenths. Again, the flash power of the softbox, that is.
Would a snoot with the grid on like a B10 help with the direct spotlight instead of if you didn't have that spotlight?
Okay, so yeah, you could put a grid, and we'll do it. I mean, I'll show you the difference.
Except they don't have that light.
Yeah, the reality is that if you put a grid on it, the grid is going to spread the light out. It's just not going to be the same as having a spotlight. We'll try it though. This is a barn door, you know. I mean, you've got a macro lens and a Profoto. I mean, Adorama sells data lights. You could just, no? Okay. Let's use a grid. Let's use the grid because people love grids. All right, so I have this grid set here. This is the Profoto grid set. I have the tightest grid that they have, which is 10, I think, or is it 5? 10 degrees. I'm gonna put it on. And I'm gonna put it on this light. So what a grid does is a grid narrows the spread of light, right? So it will definitely set us up so that we have less light flying all around. But it doesn't focus the light in the way that a proper focusable light does. So we're not gonna get that punch, but we will get light on the necklace. So I'm basically going to do the same thing. This is in the A group. What's nice about using all flash too is that we don't have to worry about our shutter speed, right? We can dial the shutter speed up so we don't have to worry about any movement or any light in the space. So at this point now I'm at f8, we'll change to at 200th of a second. I'm going to take, well, before I do that though, this is the tightest grid available for this, right? See the difference? The light is much more spread. It's also much softer because of how it's all spread out. It's hitting her in the face. Let's see if I can do this. I can get closer, I suppose. Okay. All right. But for you guys, I'm willing to make the sacrifice. All right, I'm going to go like this. Okay, so now we've got the softbox as our key light. We've got this gridded light there. I'm just going to put it in TTL and let's see what happens. I'm sure I'm going to have to make some adjustment. Okay. TTL was like, huh? Right, when you have two lights landing on one thing, the TTL is a little confused. I've got to tell you, I don't hate that. It's just the whole thing's too dark. So what I'm going to do here, knowing that that was decent, is I'm going to take the A light, which actually is probably correct, but I'm going to bring it up 3/10. Then I'm going to take my B light, which is clearly a couple stops too dark. Well, we'll say a stop and a third. Let's make another shot. Now, where are these numbers coming from? Basically just my experience with the units. I'm kind of working my way up. I kind of like how it's a little bit dark up here, because again, we want something to focus the light. And when we're using the grid, right, you see the difference. Because the hot light is punchier than the grid, we're getting a more attention drawn to it. You see the difference? The grid is just flat. That's why there are, you know, tools that are made for things. It's not just Daniel telling you that you should do it, although I am telling you that. There's a reason why that some things are better than others for things. This is not terrible, you know, as far as, I'm looking at the necklace right now, not at her face. You know, let me get her face lift correctly, that way we get an even shot. So I'm gonna go back to TTL, I'm gonna turn off the grid light for a second, and I'm just gonna shoot the softbox. Let's just get ourselves an established exposure, that way we know where we're at. You know, time is money, right? As they say. Okay, that little light's firing as well. Probably don't need that. That's probably making the shot, right? That's literally the best shot. That's the best light in the whole place. Okay, we're just establishing the softbox light. That's a little bit dark to me. That's the B group. I'm gonna take the B group, I'm gonna switch to manual, I'm gonna turn it up, half a stop. Again, we're just establishing exposure. Okay, that's correct. Okay, the B group is good, I'm gonna turn that head off. Now let's come in and let's do the A group, which is again, the light that's on the product. I'm gonna put it in TTL, I'm gonna give myself an exposure. Okay, not terrible, exposure-wise. Turn it slightly this way. And now I'm gonna put them both together. Again, going back to manual. The trick here is I'm gonna keep going back and forth to manual and TTL, because the TTL here is my metering, right? I'm metering in TTL and I'm switching to manual to lock it in. Okay, now we have a nice exposure on her face, it's showing her eyes, and the necklace is fine. You got some highlight there. It's not the most interesting shot of this necklace that you could ever get. It's a decent portrait of somebody with a necklace on, but it's not really a shot of the necklace, you know? And I think what we really want to establish here is a shot of the necklace. So we got to come in and really make that shine. So we can do it a couple of different ways. We can either take the attention away from her face, which is what I did in the first shot, or we can really make the necklace part of the shot by doing something with it, like really hitting it with some kind of light or whatever. So I think, to me, rolling back, but you can see that you can do it with the grid. I'm gonna roll back to the constant light though, because I just think it's a better option here. And I'm all about using the best options, you know? So I'm gonna go back to the constant light. Also, I wasn't 100% convinced that the barn doors were the best option. I'm gonna take those away. We'll go back to this. This is a DP 1.1 projector. Now, there is a DP2 that has built-in shutters. I like this one for this kind of work because I can add whatever accessories I want into it. What I actually want to do here is I want to create a consistent highlight on the chain. Because I think part of my problem is the light source was too soft, but also its angle is too flat. So I'm actually going to take this one up. I'm going to turn this guy sideways again. I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to actually come this way with it because I want to create the shadow pattern and reflection pattern that I want. That looks pretty good, I think. Okay, I'm going to kill the softbox for a second so I can see. I'm getting you on the chin a little bit, but that's okay. Come down a little bit. I think that'll be all right because the softbox is going to hit it. Okay. So now, again, let me kill the overhead lights. Fine. I definitely need to get like a clapper. Clap on. That's super blown out? Okay. It's nothing. I see nothing. Yeah. Okay, here. That's good. Switch to the tether. Okay, so I am going to... Okay, so we're looking at basically the camera trying to give us an exposure, which is not doing a very good job. you know, to what we want to do because it doesn't know what we're looking for. Here I have it shut down so it doesn't think the flash is on top. So I'm seeing the actual exposure. And what I can do is I'm going to dial down my shutter speed, because I want to keep it at f8, until I get kind of a little bit of a bright exposure, because I want it to pop. I want it to be slightly overexposed. Okay, so there we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to take a photo with the flash and everything, and we'll have to adjust the flash's position. And there we go. Cadence did not realize that she was being flashed. Right, but we can see now, see how much nicer, now the chain looks good. Right, but the face not so much, okay. Okay, so now we know that's working, right? We've got the light coming from that direction, it's giving us what we want. Now let's get a better light on her. What we don't want to do is take away from the chain, but we want to give a little, we want to make it more like a portrait, because that was the request. You know, you guys are like my client over here requesting stuff. Can't you make it like this? Sure I can. I can do anything you like. All right, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to have you like this. Yeah, and then I'm going to come down with this. Put a little softbox on. I'm going to go like that. So I'm basically feathering the light off to try, again, I want to create a little bit of shadow contrast because I feel like if you don't have that, it's going to look pretty flat. We don't want flat, we want interesting. So the necklace is good. Can you just turn your face back towards me a little bit? Right there, stop. Okay, I'm going to focus on her face, and since her eyes are in focus, we want to make sure that, I mean, her eyes are lit up. We want to make sure she's in focus. Okay, well, she's looking down, but otherwise good. Turn your face a little bit more towards me. Okay, good right there. There we go. Oh, sleeping. Okay, one more time. Our timing is off today. Okay, there we go. So now she's like, why are you looking at my necklace? And the necklace now pops better because of the angle of the light. Actually, now I feel like the necklace is a little bit hot, which I can bring back with my shutter speed. So I'm going to bring back the shutter speed about a stop. We'll take another shot. Oop. Yeah, there we go. Now we've got attention to the necklace. It's slightly out of focus because of my depth of field, I think. I'm going to have to adjust that. But we can see that the necklace looks nicer. This looks pretty decent. The background's kind of boring and lame. And since I have a light with a grid on it, and nothing is better to light. Oh, you know what we can do? What do you think? What do you think? Can we use this? Can we use Seth's background? I think we can. What do you think, guys? Yeah, that looks pretty good, right? Let me do this. I'm going to totally wreck it. I'm going to have Seth do it, though. That way I can blame him for it. You better check it before you wreck. Yeah, it's like she's at some fancy house that has fancy paper on the wall. Look at your fancy paper.
I don't know, there's no monitoring, but I'm pretty sure it's fine.
Okay.
All right, I go with you.
Hopefully the audio is fine. How you guys doing out there? Doing all right? Yeah, they're doing good. Everybody's chilling out. No, we got it. We got no rush. No rush. We got this. All right, I'm going to go talk to the people. I'm a man of the people. All right, so Seth is setting up the background because he is really good at it, and I will certainly destroy it. We're going to put a little bit of a depth back here. This light, actually, because I have it feathering past her, might be good enough just to light the background. So we'll try that first. I already have my other light off to the side, so if the client sees it, I can charge for it, but we may not need it. Let's see. We might add it anyways because, you know, more light's better. The other thing I might do here while he's doing that is I might bust out the framing shutters. Okay, so just because it's hitting her chin a little bit, the light, and I don't want to have her be too restricted, I can actually put in what are called framing shutters, which will allow me to cut the light. I'm not sure what they're looking at, but I assume they can see that. Yeah, there we go. Cut it right off. Nope. Needs to be behind her. So this way, and then down. Right there. Thank you. Okay, teamwork. So we did that. Okay, so now everybody looks good. Cadence looks good. That's basically the hot light. Okay, she's going to get in position. I'm just going to make sure it's not hitting her in the chin, which it's not. There we go. That looks good. And we'll get her face in a good pose, and we'll go like this. I'm going to move the focusing spot to her eye because we want a good eye. Here we go. Boom. Now, yeah, there we go. I actually like it with the one light. It feels like there's like, she's in a space. The jewelry is bright, but it's not taking away. The angle of it showcases what's there. I think this is pretty good. I'm trying to decide if I want to give just a little bit of separation on the one side. Or, yeah, like a reflector, that's what I was thinking. Maybe just a little bit. Yeah, it's not going to hit her, so I'm going to have to use a light. So I'll use a light, and we're just going to do a soft fill from this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to point the light right at her. Oh, what I could do actually is use a softbox, I guess. But yeah, that's what I'll do. I was going to bounce it off a card, but you know what? Softbox gives us a little more control. We're going to take this OCF 2x3 softbox that I have right here, ready for just these occasions. And I'm going to put it on this light here. And I'm going to spin around this way with it. Now this is obviously going to hit the background stuff too. I don't want to make everything too flat, so this is going to come down to me just finessing this light in to the exact place where I want it. I'm going to keep it flat so it's kind of neutral. I'm not going to make it feel like it's another light source. I'm just going to kind of wash it in almost like I would with a reflector card. The problem with the reflector is that I can't really get any light on a reflector from here. Okay, so this is, I'm just going to turn this one down to 3. The light goes from 10 to 2. I'm just going to set it at 3 to start with. And we're just going to take a shot and see what it looks like. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to go down to 2.5. I don't want to fill it in too much. Just want it to be subtle. Just so she's not good like that. Yeah, beautiful. One more for posterity. Okay, there we go. So we've got shadow coming from one side that shapes the face. We've got the jewelry is sticking out. We have some highlight on it. And again, this is not shiny stones, so we just want to make sure there's some shape to it. If I hit her with a hard light so we could make the whole thing look like that, then it wouldn't be attractive light on her face, right? So here we're able to create we're crafting a portrait because again, her eyes have light in them. She's making eye contact. It's all groovy, but we're still getting light on the necklace. In a shot like this, you would almost certainly do an insert of the necklace to really make it pop out because we're not able to, with this kind of portraity feel, to really draw somebody to the necklace without them knowing what it's for. So you might either just come in and do an insert, or you might do the necklace as a product photo like we did at the beginning, right? Thoughts, concerns? Anything? What you got for me out there in comment land? So I guess in summary, I'm gonna start saying in summary a lot. It feels like I'm a professor when I say it. In summary, macro lenses are really great for their versatility. If you've got to do a lot of stuff, right? If you want to get in close, if you want to do these like kind of portraiture shots, especially with the 105, they also make a 55. I think, you know, different companies make different lengths. Canon's, I think, is a 100. And you want to have that versatility. So I could shoot this and then zoom right in, and not zoom in, but move in physically and take the picture of the necklace with the close-up. You want to have that versatility. Macro lenses are really great for that. They're not just for shooting close-up things of bugs. I think that some people don't add a macro lens to their kit because they think, well, I don't usually do those kind of shots. And I think it can be a versatile tool for anybody. So yeah, let me know in the comments, I guess, if you guys, how you guys use macros and so on. I'm going to put Cadence's information down there so you guys can follow her and learn all about where she gets her jewelry. Last ex-witness over here is Seth. I'm Daniel Norton, photographer. You can follow me. Make sure you subscribe to Adorama TV and ring that bell. I will be back in 3 weeks. I think next week, Gavin Hoey's back, but I have just started a brand new podcast. If you're not following it already, it is AVoice with Daniel Norton. Check it out. You guys can call into it or send me messages and we read them on the air. I want to make a conversation out of it. So if you're not into podcasts, get into them because it's super fun. So AVoice, all one word, with Daniel Norton. Link is in the chat. Thank you, Seth. You are the best for reminding me of all that. If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I will check them out. And I think next week Gavin's here. Yeah. Gavin should be back next week. And then there is a holiday break. And then I'll be back right after. So thanks everybody for watching.